In Israel's war on Hamas terror and the Palestinian struggle for freedom and statehood, things have taken a dramatic turn. The wave of recognitions of the Palestinian state flowing through the corridors of the UN General Assembly is reigniting a deep global conversation about the path to Middle Eastern peace. But a big question looms. Does this help Palestinians, or will nothing change for Israel backed by the USA? Well, at least 145 of the 193 UN member states now recognize Palestinian statehood. This momentum of recognition has accelerated dramatically as Western nations including the UK, Canada, Australia and Portugal formally recognize Palestine as a state. And after these four nations, France, Belgium, Luxembourg and Malta are poised to follow the suit. In fact, France and Saudi Arabia will convene dozens of world leaders to rally support for a two-state solution, with several of them expected to formally recognize a Palestinian state. Remember, India was among the first nations to recognize Palestine state. However, the times are different now. Why do we say that? Because in the backdrop of IDF action in Gaza and Hamas fighting back, recognizing Palestinian statehood before the armed group is eliminated and genuine peace is achieved may have huge consequences, including what many call a reward to terrorism. Recognition of the Palestinian statehood is fundamentally a political, diplomatic and legal act that acknowledges Palestine's right to exist as a sovereign entity under international law. In fact, under the international law, state recognition requires four key elements: defined territory, a permanent population, an effective government, and most importantly, independence from foreign control. When countries recognize Palestine, they formally accept that it meets these criteria despite the complex realities on the ground. Well, practically, recognition grants Palestine enhanced international standing. It allows Palestinian representatives to participate officially in international forums, strengthens Palestine's ability to pursue legal action against Israel in international courts, and also to create a formal diplomatic channels between the recognizing state and Palestine. Recognition also puts Palestine and Israel on level footing in terms of their treatment under international law, fundamentally altering the diplomatic dynamics from one where Palestinians negotiate from a subordinate position to one of theoretical equality. As one expert noted, recognition creates a new level of diplomatic isolation of Israel. But let's face the facts. The world's strongest military still backs Israel, even amid their ever-expanding strikes against Hamas. So this so-called diplomatic isolation doesn't immediately change conditions on the ground, but it signals a shift in international sentiment. Yes, just the sentiment, but nothing else. The recognition wave also serves multiple strategic purposes. For Palestinian advocates, it enhances Palestine's international presence, bolsters its ability to hold Israeli officials accountable for their actions, and also to create pressure on Western nations to pursue a two-state resolution. However, this recognition comes with significant risk and unintended consequences that must be carefully considered. Well, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has characterized the recognition wave as giving a huge reward to terrorism, especially Hamas, following their October 7, 2023 attack that killed 1,200 Israelis and took 251 hostages. In fact, this perspective is shared by Israeli opposition figures as well, with former defense minister warning that recognizing Palestinian statehood ultimately only empowers Hamas, prolongs the conflict, distances the changes for a hostage deal, and most importantly, sends a clear signal of support to Iran and its allies. The timing of these recognitions, while Hamas still controls parts of Gaza and holds hostage, creates a moral hazard. It suggests that terrorist attacks can be rewarded with international recognition, potentially encouraging similar tactics by other such groups worldwide. Well, premature recognition also undermines effort to establish legitimate Palestinian governance. The Palestinian authorities despite its flaws, represents the internationally recognized government of Palestinian people. However, Hamas's continued control over Gaza creates a divided Palestinian polity, where two separate Palestinian governing entities exist. Well, recognition before this division is resolved legitimizes this fractured state of affairs and may reduce incentives for Hamas to relinquish control. In fact, the international community's recognition implicitly accepts a situation where Hamas, a designated terror organization by many recognizing states, maintains de facto control over parts of Palestinian state. Well, this contradiction undermines the credibility of the recognition and creates legal and diplomatic complications for the recognizing states.